And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore, where we never sit out. We are your hosts, NB and Sadie. What is going on, guys? We got a pretty. People were slandering this slate, by the way. What a bunch of slanderers. What a bunch
You,
of just uninformed folks who don't appreciate good college football. The
you're
co-
talking about a ton of like meaningful Power Five matchups here. We're going to talk about 10,
Playoff
10 goddamn.
implications.
Yep. We're talking about in like middle of the pack, like who's going to be a dark horse in their conference, who's going to be a dangerous team in their conference to watch. We have it all here. We have Cyhawk, which, by the way, has to be one of the best rivalries in college football. Do not make any mistake about it. We love it. And it's in Ames this year, 2:30. CBS is
Doesn't
thrilled
it's in
to
Ames?
have it. Oh, maybe I'm tripping here. I have it written down wrong.
It's in Iowa City.
It's in Iowa. That's why it's on CBS. Duh. Then
And
my
that's why the
apologies.
Hawkeyes are favored. It's going to be really interesting, man. Texas, Michigan, Iowa, Iowa State, Tennessee, NC State, Colorado, Nebraska, Mississippi State, Arizona State. Watch out. Arkansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Illinois, California, Auburn, USC versus, I wrote this down.
Kentucky,
Or sorry,
South
USC,
Carolina.
South Carolina, Kentucky. Carolina fans are going to love that I said that.
We'll give. Hey, can we agree this South Carolina after struggling last week? We can give USC, who took care of business in Vegas. We'll give them the title this week. You come back and beat Kentucky, we will be right back to calling you guys
They're
USC.
not going to
Right?
take that. They are not going to take that deal with you. They're
No,
SoCal.
as they shouldn't,
They're
as they
Southern
should
Cal.
not.
Yeah,
All
let's
right, what do you say we get in this? We got a ton to talk about here. We're going to be previewing all 10 of those games that you
nine.
talked about. Oh, there's 9 games. Ooh,
That's fine.
fine by me. Fine by me. And a couple upset alerts. We've got some double-digit dogs that we'll talk about. Maybe some Power 5 teams on upset alert. We will let you guys know. Just stay tuned to the end there. Like Matthew always said, if you like the content, like the video, that does numbers for the YouTube algorithm and our channel as well. Subscribe, share, do everything. Our channel has been growing so rapidly this past month. We cannot appreciate you guys enough. We hope you enjoy the content. And like always, stick with us because we'll be doing this all year long. We got a lot of football to talk about. And we thank you guys for watching and choosing to listen to us to get prepared for a great Saturday of week 2 college football.
Let's go. Let's go. Texas going to Ann Arbor. I mean, we've talked about this game for what feels like months now because we talked about the trench warfare that is going to be happening between the tackles, between these two teams. Look, Texas has a great offensive line. Michigan has a fantastic defensive line.
Yeah.
Texas has some potentially really good weapons on offense. I'd still have some question marks about it. Michigan has a really good secondary. Texas maybe has some questions in the front seven. I think less so than maybe some people are concerned about. I do think that the loss to Byron Murphy was gigantic.
Yeah.
But Michigan hasn't shown that they have the weapons on offense that they maybe did last year.
Nor the offensive line play. I mean, they struggled with Fresno State. I know there's a little bit more talent there than you're used to seeing in group of 5 play, but to me, I was disappointed. You're talking about a ton of 4th and 5th year guys with not a ton of experience, but veteran age time in a weight room, in a film room, in that culture with Michigan football. And we were expecting that they were going to come out there with Alex Orji and those running backs and pound the football with a dominant offensive line, and they didn't. And that does not bode well playing against a really, really good football team they got coming into them, especially if they are clicking offensively, right? Sometimes the best ways to beat a really good offense, an offense that is humming, is to control the clock, control the football, keep them off the field, keep your defense fresh, force Quinn Ewers and Texas to score every time they have the football. Put that pressure on them because that leads to mistakes, that leads to turnovers, especially if you have the talent you have on that defense. I want to talk about Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore, who had fantastic games. Obviously, everyone knows Mason Graham and Kenny Grant there, plus those linebacking cores, playmakers all over there with Ernest Hausman and Jashawn Barham. But I look at that secondary. This is where I want to see them be able to make some. I know Will Johnson. I know he got, he kind of got picked on a little bit. I was surprised. I was impressed. Jalen Moss is a dog, but they kind of went after him with Fresno State. There's some talent there on Texas's skill positions. You talked about them, but I want to see Hill. Is Hall healthy? I think he went down a little bit. Hopefully he's back. But how about those safeties, the new safeties, right? Because you got obviously Rod Moore isn't there no more. It's going to be interesting. And to me, that's the matchup because yes, you can get obviously the pass rush to be nuts, but it doesn't matter if you're 7 yards here, 12 yards here, boom, 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 and you're nickel and dime your way down the field, which I think Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers would be very happy to do. Plus, also that offensive line for Texas, we believe, is really, really, really good. First big test, but really good.
It probably their biggest test of the season. If I have to look in previous, now Georgia's defensive line obviously has its own monsters and beasts on it, but I think interior wise, I think this Michigan interior defensive line is the best that Texas is going to face.
Plus, you're on the road too, and I believe now don't have any sources here, but I believe the big house will be humming. Even those big new kickoff, I think there's a lot of excitement right there. A
They're
lot of
used to it.
Michigan against the worlds, like there always is, right? Michigan always thinks everyone's out to get them, whatever it may be. They got a lot of stuff going on off the field. The rallies too, like that matters too with the helmet communications. You're gonna see Quinn Ewers doing a lot of this. And if you're listening to a podcast, I'm covering my ears. I'm trying to listen to my offense coordinator or Steve Sarkisian put in the plays and also like snap counts. Like it's gonna let Michigan be able to get a jump or the same jump that the offensive linemen get for Texas. That's something to watch too on third downs, especially early in this football game if it's a close football game.
Yeah, so look, we're picking this at 7.5, and right for every game we pick the spread and who we think's going to win, right? Because those two can be different. I think for this game, and what's crazy to me is that at a neutral site, Texas would be favored by double digits. Isn't that wild?
Well, so it opened at 3.5, right? And so, but then all of a sudden, Michigan trots out Davis Warren and struggles, right? He struggled a little bit. They struggled with drops,
What do you
like
mean opened? Like
uncharacteristic
opened before week 1, right?
before week 1. Correct. Thank you. And so then that live obviously dramatically moved, and so now it's over a touchdown at 7.5. And like you said, neutral site, that means you're probably looking at 10 points right there. Kind of crazy. Kind of crazy for a team that Michigan that obviously was really, really good last year. A lot of expectation in the offseason, a lot of turmoil too. And maybe change is the right word, not turmoil. But yeah, like you said, it's pretty interesting to see. It's hard to fade Michigan though at home. But listen, I think I'm gonna do it, man. I think I am. I don't think they have the weapons to keep up with Texas if it does get into a high scoring game.
Which it
And
won't.
you think it will?
I don't think it'll get it to a high scoring game at all. And that'll be that's kind of a preview to something later.
Is that so? Do you think that'll be by design? So if it's a low scoring football game, that obviously favors Michigan, right? Is that
Correct.
going to be their plan to just muddy up the game, muddy up
Oh
the
yeah.
clock and not penalties, but just long sustaining drives?
It's Khalil Mullings, right?
I love
He's
Alex.
he's better than Donovan Edwards. Okay.
Can
Not
we can we like
can
can
we
we say that?
agree? Are we allowed to say that? Because like I haven't
Listen,
been on like I'm not a Donovan Edwards hater. This is more of a Khalil Mullings like appreciation.
truther.
Like
What?
he is so good, man. He's so good.
Dude, Edwards was 2.5 yards per, and I know it's a small sample size. It's week one,
Last year it
yada
was
yada yada.
4. It was only 4.2 with a
Yeah,
really
dude.
good offensive
He
line.
hasn't been good in multiple years. I know he's on the cover of EA Sports. You can see that in the background there. But listen, Mullings is that dude, and I think if you're on a Michigan program, I think you understand that. And obviously, him and Colston Loveland, I'm sorry, are two of their playmakers. They need to get going on the outside. Matthew from Michigan. Who are you gonna see? Who's wide receiver one there? Is it Tyler
I,
Morris? Are we gonna see
I
Samaj
guess
Moore?
I
Who
guess
leads
it's
them in
Tyler Morris.
receiving? I guess who's the leading
Samaj
reception?
Morgan. He needs to do something and he needs to
You
be good.
run after catch type thing.
Yeah, you need to have explosive like you're gonna need to run
Yeah.
the ball effectively, and then in order to put the ball in the end zone, sometimes it's tough. Now, if you have a good run game, it is easier to put the ball in the end zone when you get to the red zone, but things get tighter in there. And when you have a quarterback like Davis Warren, where we're not sure what he's going to be able to do in the red zone to elevate your team's capability to scoring outside of the 20s. I mean, I think it's Samaj Morgan, dude. He's got to do something. I'm with you. I'll take Texas and I'll lay the 7.5. Even though I think that this can be a low scoring game, I still think that Texas can cover that 7.5. I don't see this being a blowout. I don't see either offenses necessarily because we still have question marks about Texas's receivers. Now, do I think this is a very talented group? Yes. Okay. But I don't know if they're that much like Michigan secondary is really good. And I know we have some questions about it, but I'm very confident the Michigan secondary is going to be able to handle themselves. And that linebacking core is just so good, dude. So like I have a feeling that if Texas is not able to run the ball with Jaden Blue, maybe the same way that they'd be able to run with Cedric Baxter, CJ Baxter,
Yep.
you're going to be forced to throw the ball. And look, Quinn Ewers is a good quarterback, and he's been able to elevate his game in certain moments, right? But on the road, I know he did it against Bama those years ago, but that required an elite performance from Quinn Ewers. And is that what we're going to get this weekend? I don't know. But I don't think he has to be elite for Texas to cover the 7.5. So I'll take Texas to cover 7.5.
No, I'm glad you brought up CJ Baxter. That's what I wanted to get to next because to me, if you're talking about edges in this game, for Texas to be able to create explosive plays, not relying on Quinn Ewers, not having to face that pass rush, it was going to be him. And obviously keeping him ahead of the chains. That's how you beat Michigan. Being able to do what they like to do to people, right? Out physical you, go body blow for body blow. And that's what I want to see here. This offensive line for Texas has a ton of mass. Same thing can be said for Michigan's defensive line, mass and experience and talent. It's going to be incredible. You want to talk about a high level college football. You want to talk about NFL scouts going crazy. That's where it's going to be. And then on the outside there too, with Isaiah Bond, guys like Matthew Bolden, Ryan Wingo looking good. Um, those guys going up against the talent that's in Michigan's secondary and the chess match that's going to be Wink Martindale and Steve Sarkisian. And it's awesome. It is awesome. Real quick, coaching edge. Is it Texas? I think we should. I
I think
think
so.
Texas
I
because
think
I
it
don't know
is.
enough about Sharon Moore. I don't know enough about Wink Martindale
As a
as a
head
college
coach.
defensive coordinator. Thank you. As a head coach, and I love Johnny Nansen. Right, we love him. Pete Kwiatkowski
Now here's the
and
flip side
Sark,
of this.
obviously.
Under pressure, Quinn Ewers, look, people might come after me at this, but 30% of the time when Quinn Ewers gets pressured, he goes down. And Wink Martindale is very, very aggressive.
Yep.
And if he finds a way to get pressure on Quinn Ewers, it'll be interesting to see whether Quinn Ewers is going to be able to respond and throw in the face of pressure and get rid of the ball quickly so he's not setting his team behind the chains. Because if you're behind the chains against Wink Martindale, he is unleashing the dogs on third down.
Yeah,
So
you don't
you
want
have to
that.
get ahead of the chains. That's why you also have to be able to run the ball, which is why I don't know about either of these offenses really lighting it up this week. So let's move on. Let's talk about Cy Hawk. This line is Iowa -3. The game is in Iowa City. Uh, you know that those boys, those little kids in the hospital, are going to be watching this game, and it is going to be awesome. The line, like I said, Iowa -3. Let me get this total real quick. It's 35 and a half most places actually. So I think the market is anticipating a lower scoring game, but we saw how the first half was a little shaky for Iowa, okay, against Illinois State. But they kind of turned it around a little bit, and I think there were some flashes of that offense looking pretty decent. You had a wide receiver that actually did something, as well as a healthy Luke Lackey just looked awesome, right? And that was something that you were missing last year. Part of the offensive struggles was that you were missing Eric All and Luke Lackey, that got injured in that game or early in the season. Reese Vander Zee, 5 receptions, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that was a position that we were worried about, and it didn't involve Caleb Brown, right? If Reese Vander Zee ends up playing pretty good football at the wide receiver position, and they can get matchups, and Cade McNamara can move this team down the field. I mean, it'll be interesting. And look, Caleb Johnson in the running back spot, Kamari Moulton, LaShawn Williams didn't even do anything, and then they had success with their other like they have some. I think they have some decent stuff in this offense. We've talked about their defense a numerous amount of times. This Iowa defense is electric. It is elite. They still have plenty of talent on it. Phil Parker is still that dude. Iowa State struggles in week one with maybe a lesser opponent, but don't let that fool you. That's kind of what happened last season, and they kind of picked it up offensively. The one thing that I was a little worried about is them not being able to really run the ball. once again, that was something that came up in the bowl game against Memphis that led to their ultimate demise and just kept getting shelled defensively. And then offensively, they couldn't run the ball, and too much was put on the shoulders of Rocco Becht. So, where are you feeling? What are you feeling about this game, and what are you excited for matchup wise?
This is interesting. This is, first of all, a classic, one team, a lot of buzz, right, with Iowa coming in that offense, coming to rival game. And then Iowa State, who struggled a week ago with FCS Power North Dakota, right? So it's classic, teams trending in opposite directions, looking to get right for their rivalry game. I don't know, man. The last time they played in Iowa City, let I remind you, Iowa State won 10-7. Classic Cyhawk game. Hunter Decker's name drop had 184 yards. Xavier Hutchinson went for almost 100 of those yards, and they scored a late fourth quarter touchdown, or I guess, middle of fourth quarter touchdown on a 99-yard drive that went almost 12 minutes in time. Classic. I love that, man. You could take the Big Ten West out of Iowa, but you can't take. No, I fucking said that wrong. Regardless, though, you know what I'm saying. This game is going to be awesome. The only thing that concerns me for Iowa State is, man, like sometimes they just don't run the ball. Like Abu Sam is a really good football player. Carson Hansen's a nice compliment. Sometimes they just not forget, but I don't know what the word is. Where like it's like, why did you only have 22 rushing attempts? Why did Abu Sama touch the ball 5 times on the ground last week? He averaged 7 yards to carry. What's going on there? Is that a game plan thing? Is that a game script thing? What needs to change there? Someone has to figure that out, right? For them to be able to get right. Taylor Mauser and Matt Campbell need to figure that out, because to me, that's going to be the strength. You cannot forget. You cannot abandon the run against Iowa. That is when you lose the football game, because they will pin their ears back. They will get those playmakers out there in the secondary and at the second level with linebacking, and they will haunt you. Rocco Becht will struggle if he is throwing the ball 30 times a game, 35 times a game. That's what I wanted. But also on the other side there, I look at a guy like Jaden Higgins, man, on the outside,
Yeah.
maybe Isaiah Alston and Eli Green. I mean, Sebastian Castro is a stud, right? And in the middle, you have got two, elite safeties there, elite safety duo, right? Obviously, in Nwankpa and Schultz, but let those guys go on the outside, and hopefully you can protect those Iowa pass rushers. And they got a lot of them. They got a ton of guys coming back. Obviously, you're replacing Joe Evans, but damn it, man, Deontay Craig is really, really good. Yaya Black is damn good as well. Ethan Hurkett, I know they're excited about there. He's a hometown kid. He wants this. So I don't know, man. I'm just gonna go gut feeling. I'm just gonna go Iowa State to win, and obviously I'll take them to cover.
Ooh.
I don't buy into the hype yet of Iowa State's offense, or excuse me, Iowa's offense, because it was Illinois State. I know they looked good in the second half, but let's just slow the roll here, okay? Let's slow the roll here. Listen, Iowa State, their defense looked good last week, honestly, against North Dakota, and we'll see. I mean, they've got guys that can rotate up front. The linebackers are pretty good. Plus, Miles Purchase comes in. I think he can, do his best against those receivers, like you said, Van Der Zee for Iowa. So I'm gonna go Iowa State here. Now, listen, if I'm proven wrong, I think it's gonna be Luke Lackey, because he worries me, because I don't see a guy on Iowa State that can really just, shut him down. And not most people can. And most teams do not have a guy that can. He's that good. And we'll see how Iowa uses him. But I just think enough points will be scored from Iowa State, enough tries, field position, all that good stuff. And they'll be able to get the win there on the road.
I like Iowa to win. The struggle that I have though is laying 3 points with Iowa, like historically these last couple years, is like not guaranteed. When Iowa wins, it's not guaranteed that they're going to win by more than a field goal.
It's 12-10.
It's
It's
12-10.
seven to
It's
eight.
5-2. That was a real score. Or no, was it 7-2? But they had two
6-4. 6-4.
6-4. What is that?
Sometimes you'll get, it's 15-17 type game.
Yeah,
It's
so
crazy.
I'll lay the 3. I really want to believe this Iowa team. This is not a bettable game for me at all. Is this
Uh-uh.
ever a bettable game? No. And I think
And
you're right. I think Iowa State, like offensively, if they get enough possessions and they give themselves enough chances, that they might be able to do something. The question is this Iowa offense actually for real? like there still is a ton of pressure on this defense to perform. So I don't feel great about taking Iowa and laying the 3, but I guess I'll fade you on that one. But I don't feel good about either side. But I'm gonna go with my gut, and I believe that Iowa is a better football team than Iowa State. So and it's at home. I gotta believe that Iowa's gonna win this one. So, but I see where you're coming from, dude. I see where you're coming from. If they make enough plays, those wide receivers make enough plays on the outside for Iowa State, and Rocco Beck just stays sturdy, and
But
they capitalize, they make field goals, they don't squander opportunities in offense or turn the ball over. Iowa State can win this football game.
listen, real quick here. Last point I got is there's no Tory Taylor in this game, and I know that might sound like a joke, mentioning a punter for Iowa, but I mean he averaged 50 yards a punt right a couple years ago in Iowa State. Like he has been a difference maker in close games. That's what you get for Iowa. And Dakin is there, obviously talented kid, young kid, bright future ahead of him. I'm sure of that. And I'm not going to pretend to know everything, the ins and outs of punting. But listen, I mean, he averaged 40 yards a punt, right? A couple of them I know are in the 20 and all that, but I don't quite know if it's the kind of pinpoint accuracy that you got and the pinpoint leg strength that you got from Tory Taylor in terms of like giving Iowa State the whole length of the field to go and drive and backing up Rocco Beck and making him, complete 6 to 7 first downs, because that's when you get in trouble with this Iowa defense is, having to grind out possessions, go the distance of the field just to get in the field goal range. And then obviously, Iowa City, you never know what the weather there, you never know what the wind. It could be a very tough place to kick field goals at times.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see. It's gonna be an awesome football game. I will be dialed into this game. Tennessee plays against NC State in Charlotte. Is that what I'm reading?
Yep.
So,
Hell yeah.
well, great game, terrible site. I mean, why are we playing neutral site games in the year 2024 that are not the world's largest outdoor cocktail party and the Cotton Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Red River Shootout. I
They're
mean,
grandfathered in. I'm okay with that. That's fine.
yeah, but dude, for me, I mean, this is a pretty sizable line. And look, I know people want to box score snipe and see NC State and be like, oh, maybe that offense looks a little bit better than Grayson McCall. They were struggling to win that football game until late. All right, against a not very good team at all. Tennessee, on the other hand, also played a not very good team and looked phenomenal. All right.
More
I have,
specifically, Nico looked phenomenal.
yes, I have been incredibly high on this Tennessee football team all off season. I took their over on their win total, over 8.5 wins, which means I'm gonna pick them to win this game right now. 8.5 is a different story, right? I guess we call it 8. We'll call it 8. I'm seeing it 8
Yeah.
most places.
Yep.
We'll call it 8. I think it's still very interesting because I don't know. We talked about this in the NC State preview. I don't know what Tony Gibson has up his sleeve. I'm worried about the talent on the defensive side of the ball, but that hasn't stopped Tony Gibson in previous years, right? I do think that Tennessee's going to be running a pretty fast-paced offense. I think they're going to try to run the ball. Dylan Sampson is so good, and I think he's going to get his for sure. Wide receivers we know are great. I think that the defense is pretty solid. I think this is just a really good Tennessee team who can only be held back by the quarterback play, and by all signs are indicating that Nico Imaliava is awesome. So I'm gonna lay it. I'm gonna lay the 8 with Tennessee going to Charlotte.
Because now I took Tennessee's under in the beginning of the year and NC State's over. Now I didn't necessarily think that NC State needed to win this football game to win 9 games. I do not think that is true. I think with their schedule, it's very, very doable to do that, especially with the ACC kind of looking, dare I say, up for grabs outside of Miami. Like everyone else, I don't think is not nearly where they want to be playing right now, which is fine. It's week 1. That's kind of how it is in most places and in most years as well. But I look at some matchup here, and I worry about Tennessee's secondary. I did get exposed against Chattanooga. The Mocs, of course it didn't, because it's not gonna. But I do worry about what those guys can do. I mean, they struggled last year, and they brought in some transfers. Ricky Gibson, they're getting in there. I worry. I worry because I like the wide receivers for NC State. And
Yeah.
you saw him make some plays. Kevin Conception was a monster. Justin Jolly at tight end looked good too. Noah Rogers got his first game action. His feet wet there. A couple other guys, Wesley Grimes, Terrell Anderson, young kid, like they're making plays there just a week ago. That's to me where I see this to be able to um keep it close. I think for NC State, especially a line over a touchdown. It opened at 5.5. And I think with the performance last week of both teams, I think why not bet that Tennessee? I think that's great value at 5.5 for sure. But another thing different this year for NC State is that rushing game. It was great, refreshing to see a running back run the football well for the Wolfpack, wasn't it? I know it was a tough game for sure. They didn't want it to have to be in that second half, but it was nice to see that. With that being said, though, I'm with you. I'm going to go Tennessee to win, and I'll even lay the 8 points or whatever we're picking at. They're just really, really good. And it was nice to see Dante Thornton, nice to see Brew McCoy looking good,
Yep.
Chris Brazell getting his feet wet
Yeah.
in the SEC. I mean, there is talent on this offensive side. I like their offensive line.
Love it.
And to me, it's going to be about, how does that secondary hold up? And that's where I could see some sparks flying. And I almost wonder if an over is an interesting play here just because of the talent that is on both offenses potentially. Now,
The
it's tough to
over
take an over.
it opened at 58.5. The best number you can get is at 60.5.
Yeah. And that's a key number, isn't it?
Uh
61.
yeah. Well, yeah, 61. Yeah, if you want the over. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. But also it's tough to take the over in a Tony White or I'm sorry, Tony Gibson team. So who knows?
Well,
But
both Tony White and Tony Gibson teams.
exactly. Tonys. We love our Tonys
We love
defensively.
our Tonys. So yeah, I'm glad we agree on that. I mean, just I still think NC
And
State can win this football game. Just I just see the talent of Tennessee kind of overwhelming this NC State team. I really do. In in all phases of the game. Again, the only one, like you said, is that wide receiver group for NC State and Justin Jolly could flash and make explosive plays happen. But the pass rush for Tennessee, like the linebackers, the back end, I think is good enough. Just can NC State keep up, right? Scoring it. I know we talked about Tony Gibson, his potential to work with minimal talent, but the offensive line to defensive line, it's going to be in Tennessee's favor, right? The wide receivers, except Aiden White, of course, in that secondary. I like Tennessee's wide receivers in this matchup. Dylan, we talked about all these names, dude. There's just more of them on Tennessee, and I
yeah,
like them laying the 8. Colorado travels to Lincoln, Nebraska for a rematch for last year's game where Colorado spanked them, especially in that second half where Jeff Collins, or sorry, not Jeff, not
Jeff
Jeff Collins,
Sims.
Jeff Sims, uh, different guy.
Jeff
Jeff
Collins is
Sims,
crazy.
yeah, I mean he had a solid weekend last weekend, I guess.
I can't talk. I can't
Yeah,
talk.
with the Minnesota helmet back there. Yeah, I'm very interested in this game because I think Nebraska's secondary has athletes back there. The question is, are they good enough? Are they athletic? We've talked about this Colorado wide receiver core being quite literally, and this is not an exaggeration. This is not blowing up Colorado to what it's not, right? We both, I think, were on the Colorado under 5.5. We know what this team's ceiling and floor is, right? Realistically. But this wide receiver group is no joke. And Dion made it this way. One of the best in the entire country. Right. So this Nebraska secondary is going to be tested. They're going to throw the ball. They abandoned the run game against North Dakota State. They just abandoned it. They said, no, we're not going to do it. So this line is Nebraska by a touchdown here, -7. How we feeling, dude?
But I was a little bit surprised it didn't move more than it did. It open at 6.5. And it's only up to a touchdown just because of, Colorado struggled with North Dakota State last week. And listen, it's week 1. Obviously, North Dakota State won in that football game so bad. They being Colorado struggled stopping North Dakota State, but it didn't feel like last year. I was a little bit more optimistic coming away from that game in terms of the defense side of the football. It's just,
Yeah.
was it Cam Miller? Like he was really, really good. The quarterback for North Dakota State on the ground. that's where he got him, man. 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. You saw big time scrambles. You saw
left and
first
right.
down conversions. I mean,
That's how they
to
scored
me,
in the red zone too. That's like,
yeah, yeah, it's not ridiculous. And I look at Dylan Raiola for Nebraska, and I know he's got it in him, but how much are they really willing to run him? Right? It almost would rather be just Heinrich Harburg and just run the football, 100 times and win the football game. But obviously, Dylan Raiola gives you the best chance to win this game and going forward. I understand that for sure. And I know you had Johnson and Dowell and Emmett Johnson as well. Gabe Irvin in there last week running the football well against UTEP. Now UTEP is obviously in its own kind of rebuild,
Scotty
with our
Walden.
guy there, Scotty Walden, and Nebraska's transfers receiving wise also looked good too. Nair and Banks, the young kid Carter
Yeah.
Nelson. But damn it, man, I just it's interesting. I know Colorado wants it bad. I know Nebraska wants it probably even worse. I don't know how I feel about this game. This is what I'm first of all very excited to. I think the contrasting styles is super interesting, right? How is Nebraska going to hold up? You mentioned that secondary is going to get tested, man. It's going to get tested. To me, I see them creating an edge on the defensive line. You have to be able to control this game, make Colorado one dimensional. And even if they choose to go one dimensional, just make it one dimensional and really get after the pass rusher. You've got a ton of talented guys there. And I know Colorado, beefed up the offensive line in the portal, but again, it's only week 2. They're going on the road. How good are they going to be in that environment? Memorial Stadium is going to be just absolutely buzzing, right? Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And it's going to be awesome to watch.
I'm not going to overreact and say that the offensive line is good, right? But it played pretty well. They only gave up 7 pressures. I mean, Shador dropped back like maybe half of a million times, right, in that football game. And I thought they were pretty okay. So, but Nebraska is a completely different beast, right? This might be one of the best, if not the best, defensive lines that Colorado faces all year. Right? This Nebraska defensive line, we talked about in the offseason. People might not know this, but they have weapons on that defensive line. Weapons. Okay. So that's kind of a big issue, right? And running the balls is not an issue for Colorado because they choose not to do it anyways, right? But in terms of dropping back and keeping Shador clean, right? I feel really weird about this game. I think Nebraska wins the football game, but I think Colorado does enough to keep it within the touchdown. I think
Really?
this has backdoor cover, like moral victory
It's like
written
the
all over.
USC game last year.
Yeah, this has backdoor cover written all over it. So what are we picking this at? 7, probably. Yeah, 7. Yeah, I'll take the Colorado +7, Nebraska to win the football game. I think I don't know enough about this Nebraska secondary, right? I know that they're good athletes, but I think the talent that Colorado has in that receiver room is just very overwhelming, and that they're going to do enough. And believe it or not, Shador Sanders is a very good quarterback, but at times he has been, challenged when he's been under pressure, constantly throughout games. But I got to believe that this offensive line is maybe improved enough to where, sure, this Nebraska team might give Shador his problems, but I Dylan Raiola, right, playing against his first Division I football team as a true freshman. It's not easy, right? It's not easy. Although I anticipate him doing fairly well because he was really good last week. He was really good. And he was really good in the spring game. I think he's a really good quarterback, guys. All right. That's not the poop on Dylan Raiola there, but yeah, I'll take Colorado +7, Nebraska to win.
Remember when Kyle McCord was going to go to Nebraska?
Yeah, and then see ya.
And then
Don't
Raiola
need you.
comes in. But yeah, but anyways, McCord at 350, against Iowa. So I'm not gonna poop on him too much. But listen, I kind of disagree with you here. Yeah, I agree in terms of the fact that I think Nebraska wins and covers, but I disagree in the fact I think it's gonna be a close game. I think whoever wins this game, I could see Colorado running away with it, right, and just overwhelming them with that offense. But then also Nebraska just like shutting it down, running the football, and kind of just bleeding the air or letting the air out underneath Colorado. So I don't know. I'll go Nebraska -7. I guess I'll lay that just because I have a little bit more confidence in them at home. And I think, and I want to ask you this too, like who needs it more? Because I think Matt Rule needs this more than Dion does. And I know Dion will get buried if he loses because he's Dion. It's gonna
Which is
happen.
stupid. He's a touchdown dog. Like if he
Yeah,
loses this game, that's
on the
stupid if he gets
road.
buried.
It's ridiculous. But regardless, I think Nebraska and Matt Rule, I wonder how long they've been preparing for this game and what Dion is gonna bring with those weapons and that offense. I think they want it bad. I think they want it bad. Now I worry about them coming out too tight and because they know the talk and they know the pressure that they're under at home in front of that crowd. But I also just trust Matt Rule, man. Year two, Matt Rule, year three, Matt Rule. Unbelievable. So he's in year two now, and God, I'm excited. I think Nebraska's gonna be a dangerous football team. I was really impressed with what they did against
I
UTEP,
agree.
albeit it was UTEP.
So you're taking Nebraska to win and cover.
Yeah, I'll ride with you there.
Well, you're not right because I'm taking Colorado to cover and Nebraska to win.
Oh, da 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 da. Yeah, yeah.
But no, I see where Nebraska's going to win this football game. We both believe. Mississippi State. Are they traveling all the way to Arizona State? Look, they played against Mississippi State played against an Arizona team last year, a Noah Fafita-less, right? The Jaden Delora era of Arizona football. And they came out and squeaked out a victory, not throwing the ball, but running the ball. Something that I have a feeling that they're going to have a hard time doing against this Arizona State team because Wyoming couldn't do it. Wyoming couldn't do anything, right? And we kind of talked about that a little bit, and maybe in hindsight, the writing was on the wall for that. But yeah, this Arizona State defense, Brian Ward's got these boys buzzing, right? And Mississippi State's got a brand new coaching staff, brand new quarterback, a whole slew of new players. Did they do enough? Right? Did both teams do enough to stitch up their rosters to potentially win this football game? I'm looking at the line right here. It's kind of a little bit bigger than I expected. I didn't really know what I was expecting, but Arizona State's favored by 6 points.
Right. Yeah. Holy cow. Kenny Dillingham, man.
Now that home, here's what made it justifiable though for me though. When I looked at those two teams, maybe this is just an overreaction for me last week. I saw these teams pretty equally, right, going into the season. I would have said it was probably Arizona
Pick
State
'em.
maybe favored by one, pick 'em game. So you're basically telling me this is like a field goal game at a neutral site. All right, I'll believe that, right? Yeah, very very interesting game for both these teams. Both these teams have a chance to start out 2-0, and I think Lord knows that both these teams need as many wins as they can get. As I don't anticipate either of these teams making a bowl game. Could totally be wrong about that. I think these are two good coaches. We talked about the Jeff Levy hiring and how, very good for Mississippi State because in a program like that, you kind of need a really strong offense to kind of offset some of the lack of talent. And Arizona State, you and I both love Kenny Dillingham and what he's doing. It's just going to take some time. So, yeah, I mean, this game very much intrigues me. So, what are you looking at when you're looking at this game?
Obviously, I mean, it starts when Mississippi State has the football. Like, how does Blake Shapen look? He looked good last week and in the spring game, but he was their leading rusher. And I know it's
Yeah,
Eastern Kentucky, and they spread the ball around like Kevon Lee and Devon Booth from Utah State played well, and Johnny Daniels got in. It was a blowout, right? So, like, you're going to do what you're going to do. Not going to take too much from that, but obviously, you're going to need to run the football against Arizona State. That's where I see the weakness being because I look at their secondary, and dare I say, I kind of like it. Now, yes, are their cornerbacks potentially vulnerable, but I do like their safeties. I do like their nickels there and be able to play pretty darn well against this, obviously Jeff Levy, Blake Shapen offense from Mississippi State. The thing where I want to see more and I'm still nervous about because I think Wyoming is one of the worst offenses in the FBS, especially outside of Laramie. I mean, I do not they did not impress me at all. And I don't see the bodies. I don't see the talent on the team. I just don't. And you're bringing a ton of transfers on your defense line. So obviously there was a hole there, right? So there was a need that you wanted to fill. How well did you get it? How many guys did you hit on? How many guys are ready to play, in week 2 at home against Mississippi State? We'll see. I think we'll learn a lot about both these teams, early in these coaches' tenures. Then obviously Dillingham has a year ahead of Levy, but both these games I think are super important. You look at Mississippi State and what they can do. Their eyes lit up when they saw Florida just quit maybe not quit, just get buried by Miami, right? To put it lightly. And you see their schedule, and you have Eastern Kentucky, which you won, Arizona State, Toledo, and Florida. And you're sitting there and you're not counting wins, but you're like, damn, man, 4-0 seems really, really realistic. And all that leaves is Arkansas and UMass to get to a bowl game. And boy, would that be a success, I think, in year one for Jeff Lebby. I think
Yeah.
there's a ton of urgency in this football game. The thing is, you are replacing a ton on the offensive side. And is it going to be ready to go on the road? How well can they communicate? I do think it helps that you have the helmet communications. Yes, obviously, Arizona State, they're going to have the home field advantage, but I don't quite know if Tempe and Mountain America Stadium is going to be that rowdy of an environment to be able to make a major difference in this football game, to make it really hard on Blake Shapen and to have them be able to go in there and have success. With that being said, I just trust Arizona State just a little bit more, especially at home, than Mississippi State. I do think it will be a close game, though. So I'm in the middle of here, maybe soft and whatnot, but I think Arizona State wins, but Mississippi State covers here. In a close game, I trust Kenny Dillingham, although you've got that young, true freshman quarterback, man. That could worry me. But the difference here, I think, will be Cam Scatabo and what Arizona State's can do, committing to run the football. That's what they have to do this week.
Well, I look at Mississippi State, some of the injuries to their skill positions, right? Kelly Akari, injured, right? And Jeff Levy, here's what he said. He said he's getting closer and closer. We need to be patient with him. Hopeful, hopeful for him to have a good week and create some confidence for himself as much as anything, but not ready to say he's going to be available yet. That leads me to believe that he's not going to play. And he did not give an update on Corey Ellington, right, who had a boot on his right foot on the sideline. That's one of their starting cornerbacks. Or sorry, starting safety. And he's a very good football player. I think those two players missing those guys, and you didn't really see it when you played against Eastern Kentucky, right? But I think having those two guys is so important in a game like this where just the margins might be that much smaller. I think I'm going to lay him with Arizona State. Can you believe that? I think
Uh,
that's crazy. I think that's crazy, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to lay it with Arizona. And I think that this will be a good game, but I think Arizona will cover the 6. I just not ready to trust Mississippi State yet. Here's the thing, though. Like, I have such a small sample size for both these teams. Now, sample size that I have of Arizona State, I feel better about. I like the way Sam Leavitt played. I like the way that they ran the ball. I like the way that they played defense, particularly in that front 7. And I really, it's hard to say, but I think right now, sitting here, if I'm talking about a coaching edge, I think I'm a slightly into Arizona State right now, and I could be proven wrong for sure because I do think Mississippi State has a very underrated staff, but I think Arizona State is that much more underrated. Like Marcus Arroyo, they're fixing that run game. Brian Ward is your defensive coordinator. Kenny Dillingham himself is kind of an offensive guy. So I
Hines
like
Ward.
what?
Hines Ward is the wide receiver coach
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I just I feel a little bit better about this Arizona State coaching staff, and I don't know if I should, but I just do. So I'm gonna trust Arizona State here. Not a bettable game at all for me. If anything, I don't know. I don't know. Even if I was looking at a total, I don't know if this is gonna be a high scoring game, if this is gonna be a low scoring game.
I think
Last,
if you ask me in a couple days, like Friday night, like I might even reconsider. Like it's to me, it's kind of that close.
yeah.
It's just how I feel right now, especially with the Ellington news and obviously Kelly Akara, Shaman
Oh yeah.
Meteor, right? The tight end coming over from Colorado, but really was at Cincinnati before that. It's a good football player, man. I think he can be a matchup, especially if there's no Corey Ellington. And you're also, remember you're replacing Nathaniel Watson and Jet Johnson. Like those are guys that could be matching up against him. And yeah, that's another way to exploit and to get your young quarterback, Sam Leavitt, comfortable. We talked about ways to help young quarterbacks feel comfortable, get in rhythms. It is establishing a rushing game, staying ahead of the chains by doing that, and big body tight ends, athletic tight ends that can run after catch, that can create separation, give you big targets that you can't miss these throws. They're wide open with a big catch radius. So yeah, hopefully Meteor can do that. Yeah, he scored a touchdown last week. He's pretty good doing it. So obviously hoping to continue that trend for the Sun Devils.
Arkansas heading to Stillwater, I think is sneaky game of the weekend. If I was to
Yeah,
have a sneaky game of the weekend, it's definitely Arkansas at Oklahoma State. Both teams looked fantastic last week on the offensive side of the football, right? Well, Arkansas looked good both, right? But they were playing Arkansas Pine Bluff. But you saw kind of like what Bobby Petrino kind of was implementing in that offense, and it was very Taylor Green on the ground heavy, and you love that. You really do. Like that's what Taylor Green is best at. He's best in chaos. He's best when his boots are on the ground. He's moving. He's such a good athlete, man, and he's gonna be difficult to contain. I don't know. I don't feel great about Oklahoma State's defense by any stretch of the imagination. Now, do I feel really good about this Oklahoma State offense, particularly after they just shredded, the best team in FCS, which by the way is, I mean, what was the line in that game? It was like 13 and a half, 12 and a half.
it's close to 10, I think it closed at, right?
Yeah, it was close.
12
Dude,
and a
like
half, 12 and a
South
half.
Dakota State is a good football team, man. And Oklahoma State's offense just shredded them, right? Alan
Yeah.
Bowman, I thought looked great. Rashad Owens had a couple nice catches, who I love. Ollie Gordon, again, just a monster. That offensive line looked dominant. I mean, you see a couple pieces on that Arkansas defense that you like, but I say a couple pieces because I'm not sure if they're going to be able to contain at all this Oklahoma State defense or offense. It might be a game of like what offense, like who's going to make the big stops on fourth down, right? Who's going to take care of the football? I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I can trust either quarterback to take care of the football. Alan Bowman in his last 5 power conference games has 9 interceptions and one in each of those games. If Oklahoma State wants to be serious, about the Big 12 and winning it this year and making the college football playoffs, Alan Bowman has to take care of the football.
Yeah.
And you can say the same thing about Taylor Green, and that's part of the reason why he got benched for Mad Max, over at Boise State for part of that season. But he came back and ended up winning the Mountain West Championship for him and played really well down the stretch. And there's a reason why he was looked at by Arkansas staff as potentially being really good. And we are Taylor Green truthers on this show. At least I am, big time. So yeah, I find this game very, very intriguing, which is why I called it the sneaky game of the weekend. The line is 7.5 that we're gonna be picking from on this show. It's in Stillwater. So that means like on a neutral field, Oklahoma State is like a 4.5 point favorite against Arkansas.
Yeah. Listen, this, first of all, you mentioned like sneaky best game of the weekend. I'm in full agreement there. To watch Ollie Gordon, you mentioned the receivers, Owens and Presley. Stribling looked fantastic last week. And obviously, I mean, Arkansas and Bobby Petrino, Bobby P, with Taylor Green, Jaquin Jackson, and what they can do, being explosive. Um, Luke has, it could be awesome. It could be awesome. But here's the thing. I do worry me. You mentioned the defense from Oklahoma State. South Dakota State's no slouch at all. That is, probably significantly one of the best teams in the FCS. But listen, they turned the ball over, they drove the football down, and they couldn't get a 4th and 2. Then they threw an interception and they had a field goal, and then they had a field goal, and then they had five. Like, they moved the football, is what I'm trying to get to. Didn't always convert into touchdowns, but they moved the football. If Oklahoma State can be opportunistic like that in this football game, I think they win it. I think they win it by definitely more than 7.5. But it worries me, man. It worries me if like you said, Taylor Green takes care of the football. If they can run the football, I mean, obviously they're not going to run for 8.5 yards per carry. If they do that, they're going to run away with this football game for Arkansas. But if you can run the football, keep drives going, and take care of the football, keep Ollie Gordon and Alan Bowman off the field, and you make Alan Bowman stress and press, that's where you get him in tough situations. Even though he's like 7th-year veteran guy, he can be vulnerable to some of those kinds of plays. I don't know, man. I really don't know how to feel this.
No clue.
My gut tells me just take the home team to win and take the other team to cover. Just because I feel like it's going to be like one of those like back and forth all-time classic games. When I say all-time classic, I mean just a fantastic thriller of a football game. I look at an over and under and I see 62. It opened at 59.5. I mean, damn it, man. It's 30 points each. Really, like, 35-28 type game that Vegas thinks. I could see it being in the 30s. And can I ask you this? If that goes over, right, and they're both in the 30s, potentially 40s, who does that favor? Does that favor Tim Green, or does it favor the home team and Alan Bowman with those receivers?
In a shootout,
Or Bobby Petrino, man. You
I
can't, that's gotta be worth something.
yeah, I think Arkansas needs this to be a shootout. That's what I think. I think Oklahoma State would not like it to be a shootout, but I think because I think like the more times Alan Bowman has to throw the ball, like the more chances that there is that something bad happens, right?
You
Now,
could say the same thing about Green too, though. That's what makes this game so good.
yeah, but he's so much more explosive on the ground.
Oh yeah, and he doesn't have to.
He
In
doesn't
the
have
shootout,
to
he doesn't have
necessarily
to.
he doesn't have to put the ball in the air necessarily to do damage like Alan Bowman does. Alan Bowman, if he wants to do damage, he has to put the ball in the air. Now here's the thing. Andrew Armstrong did not play last weekend. Here's Sam Pittman's comments just a couple hours ago, right as we're recording this. And this is Wednesday night. Well, Andrew's gotten better since last week to Monday to Tuesday. He's improving each week. Whether he can go full speed or not on Saturday, and this is not to hold anything back, we have other good receivers. I just don't know at this point, but I will say that he's looked a lot better this week, even from Monday to Tuesday, and expecting him to look better today as well. Bunch of that. Look, he says, and then he continues saying, but we're confident that we've got 5, 6, 7 receivers that have speed and are catching the ball extremely well. So my thought is that maybe he's not going to play. I don't think Arkansas is expecting him to play. And I think he's a big deal. I think he's a really, really good talent. Yeah, I think I'm going to lay the points with Oklahoma State because I just don't see Arkansas stopping Oklahoma State. And here's the thing about Alan Bowman. For the bad decisions that he makes, sometimes he puts it out there for his receivers to make plays. I think if Arkansas loads the box, Rashad Owens, half of his targets last season were from 10 yards or more, right? Like Rashad Owens is an incredible deep threat. I think
Yeah,
Brennan Presley
good point.
stretches the field. I think Stripling, there are just too many weapons on this Oklahoma State offense. And I think that offensive line is really good too. I don't think they're going to have a problem running with Ollie Gordon. But if Arkansas does load the box, I think there's a chance that they could take the top off of that Arkansas defense, you know, who's secondary. You feel good about some of the pieces, but you really don't know. And I think that this line, this 7.5, and I don't know exactly, but this is a theory that I have that it should not react like this might be an overreaction to the Arkansas Pine Bluff. Arkansas Pine Bluff is terrible. All right. It could be an overreaction to that. I don't know.
The one thing I do worry about too is and they look good obviously in week one, but like you said, don't take too much from that. That linebacking core is completely overhauled. Right, top four snap leaders from last year are all gone. Chris Paul, Jaheim Thomas, guys like that are gone. And if you need to stop the run, and I get it, you feel good about your defensive line, but those guys are going to be put in space and have to make tackles on a really good running back. And that's where I do see some concern there in terms of breaking a couple plays. Maybe, a first down here and there of due to just inexperience at linebacker. And that could be the difference in a close football game. Man, maybe there's one Arkansas to win this football game just so badly. I don't know because it's gonna be a great game. It's gonna be a great game. I want to ask you this too though. Who needs this more? Is this Oklahoma State or is it's probably Sam Pittman, right? I would
Well,
say.
I mean, I don't obviously people aren't expecting Arkansas to necessarily win this game, but Mike Gundy doesn't need anything, right? He doesn't care about out of conference games, right? At all. There's no need for him to. I think Arkansas Sam Pittman needs this more than Mike Gundy. But I will give the coaching edge. I don't know, actually. Actually,
Bobby Petrino, man, the factor that he brings, but you can't. I think Mike Gundy. I just whatever. Just trust Mike Gundy in football games. Now in September, sometimes not, but I think you kind of have to. But I think Sam Pittman, they need this football game. I mean, you look at their schedule and they've got UAB next week, who's not very great, and then they're on the road at Auburn, neutral site against A&M. Tennessee, who's really talented, and then you get into a bye week, and you know, not to predict a firing or anything like that. Hopefully he's got his job there, but that if you're 2-5, what two and four by then, that's not a terrible time, to start a coaching change if it has to be that early. I
Yeah.
do think there's
Or
some
week
urgency, I
11.
think, or week 11 as well.
So, yeah, Arkansas
It
needs
would be
this.
huge. It would be
Yes.
huge for Arkansas.
Kansas travels to Illinois in a game where the line is Kansas -5.5. This is a good game. Little revenge game potentially for Illinois. Kansas has a healthy Jalen Daniels. They looked good. But Illinois also looked really good. Neither of them played necessarily incredible opponents. Okay. But I do think something has to be said about the way that Luke Altmaier played and the talent that might, like Pat Bryant looked fantastic against Eastern Illinois. Caden Fegan, when they played against Kansas the time before, Caden Fegan was not an integral part of that offense the way that he is now. I think there's a lot of change from really both of these teams, but I think more so Illinois in the last 365 days, where makes for a really interesting football game. Of course, it's the line is under a touchdown, so you would imagine this being a pretty good game. But yeah, what are you looking for in this game? I know you are incredibly high on Kansas, so I imagine that you're probably going to lay it with them.
Yeah, I've got a future for them to win the Big 12. Now, however, this game doesn't really matter for the Big 12 race, although I do think it builds momentum for this team. And early in the season, you got a healthy Jalen Daniels, healthy Devin Neal, Luke Grimm is back. I mean, they bring a ton of production back. I love Kansas in this game. Now, listen, I took the Illinois over too. Like I feel good about Illinois, what they can do with their schedule, but I just think Kansas brings so many problems that they can just overwhelm you, especially a team. If you put a guy like Luke Altmaier in a spot where he has to make plays, and keep up body blow for body blow with Kansas, that's where I worry because he takes a lot of sacks. He struggles
Mm-hmm.
when he's under pressure as well. If Kansas can just pin his ears back and rush the passer. So I don't know, that's where I could see some concern there run into for Illinois, although it is at home, which is really nice. It is a revenge game, which is really nice. But again, I'm going to go Kansas here. I just think Lance Leipold is really, really good. I think that team is talented. I do not see a ton of weak spots on this football team. And damn it, man. They're really, really good. Now, stopping the run, I think, could be a problem. I do think, you've got a lot of bodies in the defensive line room for sure, but it's going to be about how many of those guys are ready to stop the run right now. A couple of those young freshmen, I don't think are, but again, yeah, that could be where you run into problem if Illinois can just control the football game, control the pace, and all of a sudden Kansas is playing from behind. That's a different story, but I just think Kansas. I mean, they jumped on Illinois last year. They jumped on him, and Luke Altmaier struggled. I think it's a
Yeah.
much different Altmaier this year, much different running game and team for Illinois. But again, I think Kansas is really, really good. So I'll go Kansas. Plus, last thing I'll say here, both these teams played, I believe, a week from Thursday. So they played on the 29th. So both these teams have about 9 days of rest to get ready for this game, which is nice, I guess, them to get healthy, watch some film, enjoy the weekend before really getting into, week 2 prep. So it's not like there's an advantage either way there. But both teams played on last Thursday.
I like Illinois in this spot.
Okay.
I'll take
Convince me.
Illinois +5.5, and I'll take them to win the football game as well. And I don't feel great about it. But my thought here, I think Illinois improved a lot more than people think. I think even though you lose like an NFL guy on that offensive line, I think they like what they have this year, and you get a really, really nice transfer from New Mexico in J.C. Davis, who is impressed, looked good in the first game. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. In Kansas against Lindenwood, didn't really get off to a hot start, right? And maybe that's because Jeff Grimes is now doing the whole thing over there at offensive coordinator. But they didn't get off to a hot start there. If they don't get off to a hot start against Illinois like they did last year, right, I think Illinois, they would like to kind of squeeze this one out. Maybe shorten the game a little bit. Maybe let Caden Fegan, a guy that Kansas really didn't see last year, let him eat. And I think this defense, I think they feel better about they. It was a personnel issue in that secondary last year, right? They weren't able to do what they wanted to do. I think they believe that they have some guys here to do what they want to do. Now Kansas, with Kansas, it doesn't really necessarily matter a whole lot because they are going to scheme guys open and they're going to have theirs. But I I just feel good about Illinois in the spot. And Illinois gets them at home too, and I think that's a big deal. So I'm gonna take the 5.5, and I'm also gonna take Illinois to win this football game. Don't feel great about it. And I do like your Kansas to win the Big 12 pick. I really do. And I think the ceiling of Kansas is immense, right? And the reason why I wasn't with you on that train is because a lot of their home games aren't actually home games because they're
Yeah.
playing at Arrowhead, they're playing at Memorial, right? So that's why I wasn't necessarily so high on Kansas. Like in terms of a win total perspective, I do think this Kansas football team is really good. I'm just I like this Illinois team, and I want to believe that this Illinois team is good. I'm just like you said, Altmaier. They put him in bad spots. I think Kansas's secondary is really stinking good. Now you lose Jordan Peterson, your defensive backs coach, over to Texas A&M, who was a very integral part in what made that defensive room so special. But you still have the talent there, so you're not worried about the talent. I'm interested to see what goes on in this game, but I'll take Illinois plus the 5.5 and to win the football game. Completely fading you.
Here's what I'll say, my rebuttal to that. So my only concern to Jalen Daniels is he didn't have a single rushing attempt last week. Now,
Yeah,
here's the deal. If you, in an ideal world, I don't want him taking rushing attempts against Lindenwood. I do not. However, that does concern me how concerned they could be and cautious they are about his health. And I'd obviously hate for anything to happen to him because he is so dynamic and so important to this Kansas football team. But again, that's definitely something that concerns me in terms of his health long term. Now, however, last year it didn't matter. He didn't really run the football all that great. It was him using Lawrence Arnold, using Luke Grimm, and it was the combination, the 1-2 punch of Neal and Highshaw, who ran for about 10 yards a carry last year. And now that obviously I don't think that'll replicate again this year because that is really, really impressive. And Neal had some big runs and Highshaw had some big runs, but that's where you can get in trouble if you're Illinois, because I look at the Illinois roster and that defense, and yes, I hear what you're saying about that secondary, but you lose a ton on that interior defensive line. Jerson Newton, Keith Randolph, Denzel Daxton, Sed McConnell, Bryce Barnes, like a lot of guys who played for you multiple years are gone. And you just got to plug in these new guys. And yes, it worked against was it Illinois State they were playing?
Eastern Illinois.
Eastern Illinois, thank you. The Panthers, how can I forget? Jimmy G. But that's where I could see them getting into trouble, especially if you're Kansas who was going on the road and they want to be able to establish a running game and keep Jalen Daniels healthy, not only not taking sacks, but not having to use him in the running game. If you could just hand the ball off to Neal and Highshaw, I think you're in a really, really good spot. I think Kansas could be.
Over 55.5. It's very interesting. I didn't take it, but it's very interesting.
Well, last year it was 57, if I'm doing the math right. So, but also Illinois scored a couple late touchdowns. I think Kansas took the foot off the gas. So it kind of worked out evenly, but I don't know.
Cal travels across the country for the first time this season because they'll be doing that a lot of times this season. Like, just part of being in the ACC now, I guess. But they got to travel to Auburn. And they're 13. Is that 13.5 point underdogs?
Criminal. Sorry.
Well, I guess we'll play it at 13. How about that? We'll drop the 0.5. Yeah, and I'm with you. Kind of criminal. This Cal football team might be good. Fernando Mendoza is the guy right now. Again, we feel good about Chandler Rogers if he has to come in there. But yeah, and sure, Auburn absolutely beat the pants off of Alabama A&M, but still question marks about Peyton Thorne, right? Still question marks about Peyton Thorne. Did not play well in this game. They snuck out of this one last year. snuck out of this one by the skin of their teeth.
It was awful. It was, listen, there was a, normally I love like smash mouth, low scoring football games, but it wasn't even smash mouth. It was just, it was just weird. It was not an, it was an ugly football game late in the night. Cal should have won that football game. And Sam Jackson, who was playing wide receiver, I think for Auburn now, he was the quarterback for Cal. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, I like Cal in the spot. I'll take him plus 13.5. I don't think I can take him to win though, because you're in Jordan Hare, right? I mean that in and of itself is a lot of points. I know it's not necessarily it's a 2:30 game, right? It's gonna be rowdy. Kids are gonna have a lot of rest. They're gonna be hitting the tailgates early because it's a 2:30 game, and that stadium is going to be still pretty ballistic, even with an opponent like Cal coming in. Maybe not Alabama. It's gonna be rowdy. Jordan Hare is gonna be electric. All right, and I just don't know if Cal has the personnel, the talent, the coaching, the will. I don't know that they're good enough to beat Auburn on the road, but I do think that they keep it within 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm with you here too. And Mendoza didn't look great against UC Davis. Now he did enough for sure. Rogers played a little bit too. Um, but again, Jaden Ott, I think, is the difference maker. Now Auburn, obviously, they beat the pants off of Alabama A&M, but it's Alabama A&M, right? That's what you expect them to do. I was encouraged to see all of their explosive plays, something I thought that was missing from a year ago, especially through the air with guys like Cam Coleman, with guys like Perry Thompson, guys like Keandre Lambert Smith, all new faces in that wide receiver room for Auburn. But listen, I like California, man. I think it's a good football program. I really do. I'm not gonna say that Auburn's gonna sleepwalk over this game, but listen, Hugh Freeze is he is no stranger to dudding a game here and there, and Auburn fans know that pretty well, don't you? Last time, New Mexico State team from the West Coast came over into Jordan Hare. I don't know, man. I mean, I think Auburn definitely needs to win this football game because they want to win 8 games. I think they want to win 8 games, and their schedule is kind of reasonable as in terms of what it's been for them. Obviously, you got Oklahoma and Georgia and Bama, but I see ULM, I see Kentucky, I see Vanderbilt, all good football teams. Missouri, but Arkansas, those are like winnable games. I think for Auburn on the schedule, they could get it done. But damn, man, California, I just don't think they're gonna blow them out. I really don't. The way they're on the football, I think how much they've improved defensively, and obviously you trust Justin Wilcox on that side of the football and running that 2-4-5 that they like to do. Um, it should be interesting. It should be interesting. A very very good tough test for them. You can kind of work out the kinks of traveling, across a couple time zones and figure that out. Obviously, their schedule is much more front loaded than I think Auburn's is. You've got Florida State coming to town a couple weeks from now. Miami's early in the season. NC State's middle of the season, and then you've got games at the end. They're super winnable. Stealing a game here would be massive, massive for building momentum for Wilcox in this season here. What is it? Year 7 now, year 6. They're in Cal, but I don't know. I think Auburn will win, but I do think it'll be close. I'll take California to cover.
I do think getting Isaiah Rakes. Now I don't know for certain that he'll be back. I know that when Hugh Freeze was explaining it, it sounded like they just held him out of the game just so that he could get more rest. I know it's an ankle injury. Isaiah Rakes could be a really decent one tech, especially if you're trying to stop the run. I think Isaiah Rakes is such a massive body to get back there in that one tech to be in that rotation. So I do think that's a good thing for Auburn. If you want to look at ways that they can find a way to win and cover this game, it's got to be stopping Jaden Ott, right? Hopefully Isaiah Rakes can be a part of that if you're an Auburn fan. And then yeah, continuing to be explosive with the football. I'm not sure if they're going to be explosive in the same way that they were against Alabama A&M. And look, it's still a lot of young guys in that wide receiver room. I mean, really, you look at Robert Lewis and Lambert Smith as guys that are, the quote unquote veterans, and I guess Sam Jackson got a touchdown, ironically, last week. But yeah, because other than that, it's really freshmen, right? So are you going to see some of those mistakes that you sometimes see from true freshmen. Mistimed routes, running the wrong routes. Are those going to lead to turnovers? I don't know. Maybe that's a stretch, but it's definitely something to monitor because if those freshmen look good, they're on time, they're dialed. I mean, looking down the stretch, this Auburn offense could be the vastly improved offense that we maybe expected. So I'm
Yeah, in terms of keys to the game, real quick, California has to stop the run, I think. I mean, that front seven, you got guys like Carlton, Ulave, Buchanan, who looked good last week. You have to be able to stop the run. This is an Auburn offensive line that struggled last year, and obviously they looked good last week. But again, a couple new faces, still adjusting. If you want to be able to go on the road and get an upset here, you have to stop the run. If Hugh Freeze and Auburn can run the football, I do think Peyton Thorne will have chances to make deep shots, to let those talented receivers get open down the football field. But also, I kind of like the matchup for Cal. That secondary for Cal is pretty darn good. Noel Williams, Craig Woodson, Matthew Littlejohn played well last week. Like, you've got some guys in that room that I think can match up for you. It'll be interesting. Definitely another game, just a sneaky Power 5 matchup game that's going to be really interesting. You're talking about two teams, quote unquote, in the middle of the pack of their conferences, and I think it's a lot. I think the ACC wants this bad after being embarrassed by Florida State a couple times now. Clemson, kind of got taken it too by Georgia. I think they want this one bad.
South Carolina travels to Kentucky. South Carolina did not look very impressive last weekend, at least offensively, right? They were able to run the ball effectively. Lenore Sellers was not necessarily everything that I dreamed of that he would be. But it's not over.
Yeah,
It was week one, right? There's still a long ways to go. And uh, holy cow. I mean, Cal Kennard, Dylan Stewart. I mean, how good were those guys
jeez,
coming off
Dylan
the edge?
Stewart is awesome. I know he's getting a ton of hype right now on Twitter and all that, but damn man, I cannot help but just
Yeah.
right.
Well,
I
when I
mean,
was saying on this show that this defensive line is really good, like, we're not kidding. I don't know that I expected Dylan Stewart to be that good. I really didn't. But yeah, this defense is good, right? And for a guy like Brock Vandegrift, who played fine, did enough. They didn't really have to do that much in their week one matchup with Southern Miss. Defensively, Kentucky also looked good too. Like, these are two teams that are very, very good defensively. And that line it's 10 points, right? 10. That's a lot of points for two teams that are really defensive teams. And your over under you're looking at is 42.5. That's an implied what is that, 25 or 27-17 or 26-16? That's what that is. Um it's a very, very interesting game. So when I'm looking at this, I think Kentucky's a really good football team, but I worry about both quarterbacks in this game. I'm gonna take Kentucky to win, South Carolina to cover +10. I think Kentucky at home, that benefits them a ton. I think Brock Vandegrift can maybe do enough, but I also think that this South Carolina defense is ferocious and really talented. And I don't think people know that yet. Maybe they're starting to realize that, looking at Dylan Stewart highlights on Twitter. But I mean, so is Kentucky's defense, obviously. Like, it's really, like, we were both, or in terms of season-long bets, I have both South Carolina's and Kentucky's over on the win total. I think in large part because of their defenses, and I was kind of betting on their quarterbacks showing improvement in the offense. I don't know that Lenore Sellers is necessarily better, or I didn't think Lenore Sellers was going to necessarily be better than Spencer Rattler, but I had a feeling that offensive line was going to be better. For Kentucky, I had a feeling that Brock Vandegrift was going to be better than whatever they sent out last year with Devin Leary, or the ghost of Devin Leary, I should probably say. So, yeah, I'll take Kentucky to win, South Carolina to cover.
yeah, I'm gonna go Kentucky to win, but Kentucky to cover as well. I just think the matchup here, I do worry with South Carolina running the football on the road against this defensive front that is Kentucky. I mean, Southern Miss didn't even try to run the ball. I know it was canceled short because of whatever, and Kentucky kind of jumped on them, but you've got Jamon Dumas Johnson right there, a linebacker who's really, really good. Keyshawn Silver, I thought, is finally making some plays. Obviously, Deion Walker and JJ Weaver are really, really good as well. Yeah, if you stop South Carolina's rushing attack, I think you're going to have a good chance to win and potentially win big. And that's what I see happening here. Although, I mean, Sanders and Sellers, it's a fun duo, man. It's a fun duo. But they struggled last week. And I'm not going to overreact, obviously. We don't do that here. We would never overreact.
We would never do such a thing.
However, I do think some of that is worth noting in terms of being able to put the ball in Lenore Sellers' hands and make you beat him, make you beat you. I don't know. I don't know. I do think South Carolina is going to stop. I'd almost rather take the under in this game than pick, one of the teams to cover. And there's Matthew smiling at the camera. You know what that means. That gives me some good stuff. But I thought Vanderbilt looked fine. He bounced back after an early interception. I like the trio that is Macklin, Key, and Brown. I think those guys bring different body types, different, catch radiuses, different round to catch stuff. I really like the matchups that they can bring. And I'm excited to see Kentucky, utilize the best out of them. And it was nice to see Barry Brown get 2 touchdowns last week. I did have him in fantasy draft. Don't forget that. That was great to see. Obviously, only at 28 yards, but they got him a bunch of touches, right? 7 touches, 2 touchdowns. That's a great, great numbers for you as a Kentucky fan.
Yeah. You love to see that. Yeah, I really like this under. Not to spoil anything for the best bets of the week, but there's a 43 out there. Just gonna say that. If you do want to take the under.
This is one of those games that is first 20. The first of 20 wins this football game.
Correct.
And I think it'll be Kentucky. That's
Yeah.
crazy though. It's a big line. It does worry me. I just think like I could see South Carolina like almost getting blanked here, but I could also see them running the football well and going into Lexington getting a win. But if you had to tell them make me choose one, I'll just take Kentucky to win and to cover at home.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. Let's get into our underdog plays of the week. Now, these aren't necessarily plays because we're not betting on them, but every week, CD and I sit down and we take 2 underdogs with spreads larger than 10, right? That we think have a legitimate chance of outright winning the football game. I got my 2. You got your 2. I've already seen your 2. Yours are pretty smelly, not gonna lie, and I love them. I love them. The problem is, when I was looking at the slate, I didn't feel great about a lot of these 10+ point underdogs. So we did our best. Last week I felt better, honestly, and we were close. We were close on several of those, but didn't end up hitting any of those. But and again, these are like an implied probability of like less than 30%. So it's not like we're supposed to be hitting like every single one, right? So yeah, I'll go first with my 2. I got BYU plus 11.5 versus SMU. I just BYU and SMU I think are pretty not necessarily. I think SMU is more talented. But Kalani Sitake, I think he's underratedly kind of fighting for his job this year. And this BYU team is looking to be pretty physical. I wasn't impressed with the physicality of SMU's offensive line. I think BYU could have a chance to win that football game. We already talked about it. California plus 13.5. I think it would be crazy if they won on the road at Auburn. But I didn't see a lot of other games that I liked better than this. So I'm going to go with California plus 13.5 to win. Let's go.
Yeah, listen, I don't hate those at all. Obviously, I took California cover, so obviously I think that's not crazy, for them to make up a touchdown here or there. The ball bounces in weird ways in Jordan Hare, and maybe it's just gonna bounce the right way for Cal there. But yeah, the SMU one's interesting. They had a bye week last week, right? I guess
No, they played
bye week.
Houston Christian.
Oh yeah, and they got back. Did Kevin Jennings start that football game?
I think they both played.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, Stone got the start, but then Jennings obviously, played well too. That's interesting. I Rattler actually needs that one, but also it would be nice for BYU Satake to get a win there. I think that'd be interesting. Definitely want to watch. I'll go a little bit more sneaky, a little bit more smelly.
It's super.
Give me I'll start with Eastern Michigan at Washington across the country, plus 25.5. Listen, we see it every year. There is one team that, almost a 4 touchdown favorite that loses. And if you're telling me it's going to be Washington, I don't think it's crazy. Listen, they gave up Damon Bankston of Weber State, averaged 6.5 yards per carry, over 100 yards. And Eastern Michigan's got two running backs they like in Delbert Mims and Dante McMillan. And Cole Snyder is good enough, a veteran enough that can take care of the football, win on a third down when he has to guys like Oren Singleton and Terry Lockett. It could be interesting. Listen, and Jed Fish, they're replacing a lot. I know. Jonah Coleman ran the football well. Of course he did. It was Weber State. Will Rogers looked good too, didn't he? Of course he did. Right? Those things don't surprise me at all. Obviously, I think Washington's obviously more talented. There's a reason why they're over 4 touchdowns. But you want to talk about a sneaky long shot? It's not crazy. It would be crazy, okay? But again, we can hope, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's in the second half there and it's a little bit more tighter than you think, and then all of a sudden Washington kind of tenses up. Moving back over, to the East Coast here, I guess East Coast, the Eastern Hemisphere of the U.S. Let's go Louisiana at Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State's home opener in the FBS. They are 15.5-point dogs. You rode them last week against UTSA, and they gave Owen McCown all they could handle, right? And it was a close game for a while there. And I just don't buy into Louisiana yet. I can be convinced, and I hope I am, but I don't buy into them yet as a legit Sun Belt contender. I do think this is one where they could slip up on. Obviously, Wilders looked good last week, over 300 yards against Grambling, but again, it's Grambling. I think UTSA is better than Louisiana, excuse me. And UTSA wow. Kennesaw State held their own. Davis Bryson, he did some frisky things. He's kind of frisky, man. We'll see how it works out. Obviously, I think those fan base, and they should be really excited for that football game. It's definitely going to be one that I'd love to watch, love to see, and what they can do competing on the FBS level.
Yeah, I like both your picks. I really like the Eastern Michigan one. You have any time? Also, Chris Creighton's gotta be one of the most underrated coaches in the entire country.
Yeah.
Such a good job he's done there at Eastern Michigan. So that's sneaky. And yeah, like you said, I rode Kennesaw last weekend. They did give UTSA kind of a lot to handle there. So yeah, that's our underdog Central Station. There we go. Let's get to the best bets. All right. Texas, Michigan, under 43.5. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Now let's run through these, I guess, and give some explanation. Virginia +2 against Wake Forest. I know they're on the road. I don't like Wake Forest at all. And I know they played both quarterbacks and looked okay last week, but I like Virginia. I like Virginia a lot more than I like Wake Forest. I don't think they should be dogs. Maryland -8.5 against Michigan State. Michigan State, this isn't to overreact. I think Maryland's defense is just really good. The question is Billy Edwards going to screw me over, right? And that's the question. And I could look back at the slate and be looking at all green except Maryland -8.5 and be like, why did I bet on Billy Edwards?
Dude, I like that bet there. Not to interrupt there. I like that bet.
All right, appreciate it. Glad you feel that way. Texas State -1 against UTSA. I like this Texas State football team. I know they're in a close game with Lamar, but how does 156 penalty yards sound to you? Yeah, that'll keep Lamar hanging around in a ball game, right? Assuming that they clean like a fraction of that up, I anticipate Texas State playing better. And UTSA, I still think has quarterback problems. Not sold on this Roadrunner team yet. Give me Texas State -1. South Carolina, Kentucky, like I mentioned before, is the last one. Under 43 points. Give it to me. So that's 5. So Texas, Michigan under 43.5. Virginia +2. Maryland -8.5. Texas State -1. And South Carolina, Kentucky under 43 points in the game. See, actually, I forgot to say, did you have any best bets for this weekend?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd love to throw some in there. All right. I've got 3 of them for us. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Gotta be odd numbers because you don't want to be, whatever, regardless. So our first one is Oregon to bounce back against Boise State at -18.5. I think They are going to clobber Boise State. Boise State did not
Okay.
impress me at all. I think Oregon has the bodies to body up. Obviously, a stud in Ashton Janty, but I think I really like Oregon to bounce back after last week's disappointing. Another team that I think is going to clobber and laying a lot of line here. Oklahoma at home against Houston. Houston is terrible. I got a
Yeah.
line here. Oklahoma minus 28.5. Would love to be under 28, but again, I'll take it.
Ooh. Can I ride
It
that with
opened
you?
at you can. It opened at 27.5.
I'll
Would have
ride it.
loved to be picking the show at that time. Regardless, though, I'll take 20.5. We got one more for Matthew on the Dawson's Diner or the
Whatever we want to
best
call it.
bets.
TBD.
Yep. And then last one here is Texas Tech as road dogs against Washington State. Texas Tech plus 2.5. Damn it, man. I know Washington State looked good last week, and I know they'll be fired up for that football game, but I still believe in Joey McGuire. You know they've dudded. They have dudded week one before and come out and looked really good in week two. I expect to see it again this week. Oregon minus 18.5. Texas Tech plus 2.5, and Oklahoma minus 28.5. How do we like it?
I love it. I'm riding the Oklahoma minus 20.5 with you. Let's go. Let's go Sooners. I don't know why. Maybe I looked at that and maybe just got scared off because it crossed the 28, but
Houston's not very good,
what are we
man.
doing? 28.5. This is like when Minnesota played Colorado. What was that, 2 years ago? And I took it at 28.5. Because, and you know, I wasn't scared because I knew that Minnesota was that much better of a football team, you know, and I knew that Colorado was just on stinker alert. This was before the
Yeah,
Dion era, right? Uh, yeah, I love that minus 20.5. Yeah, and I like your Texas Tech and the Oregon one I'm a little bit scared about, but I can understand why. Like, I don't hate it at all. I don't hate it at all. I definitely
yeah.
would not be taking Boise State to be within 3 touchdowns there, basically. But yeah,
No.
I'm in love with the Oklahoma play. I'm gonna ride with you on that one. Let's go. Those are our best bets. So to recap, Texas, Michigan under 43.5, Virginia +2, Maryland minus 8.5, Texas State -1, South Carolina and Kentucky under 43, Oregon minus 18.5, Oklahoma minus 28.5. And that's a double whammy because we're both on it. And Texas Tech +2.5. Here we go. Now we're done. So thank you all so much for tuning in to our week 2 previews. We appreciate you for listening to the previews. If you're at this point, you've made it through the previews, the underdogs, and the best bets. So we thank you all so much. If you'd please give us a like and consider subscribing to be here weekly, we would appreciate that so much. We love doing this with you guys. And make sure you guys are tuned into these games this weekend. And not just these games, but all of these games. Because I think this is a way better week 2 slate than we could have imagined. Because it's evident because we had a tough time picking underdog central. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of games where the lines are under double-digit points, and we got a potential for some crazy stuff to happen. It's just week 2, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
CD, anything for us on the way out?
Now, like Matthew said, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you guys so much. Hope you enjoy. College football's back, man. What a time. September is fantastic. And yeah, continue riding with us. Continue, tuning in because we don't sit out.
We'll see y'all in the next one.